obesity and the obesity trends in the United States. We will first look into if obesity is really a problem. Then we will try to analyze why obesity is increasing and what is being done against it. Of course, we can't answer these by ourselves, so we've interviewed some highly qualified professionals to help us answer those questions. After finding the answer to those questions, we will explore the history and attempt to mathematically predict the future of obesity trends in America.
Obesity has a direct relationship to calories, units of energy that are consumed through food and then expended through bodily functions and physical activity. Calories work like a scale. On one side you have the calories that you take in from food and drinks, and then on the other side you have the calories that you put out through physical activity and bodily functions. And when they are equal to each other, you are said to be in balance, and you maintain your weight. Basically, it can be summed up in this. C, or calories from food, minus P, or the calories that you take out from physical activity, equals X. If X equals 0, then you're in balance, and you maintain your weight. If X is greater than 0, in other words, if the calories that you take in are greater than the calories that you put out, you are in caloric excess and you gain weight. Whereas if X is less than 0, then you are in caloric deficiency and you lose weight.
What are the factors that cause obesity on an individual level?
Food consumption and lack of exercise.
How do those factors affect weight and health?
How do those factors, what?
How do they affect your weight and your health?
Well, the more calories that you consume and the lack of exercise, those extra calories that are left over will turn into fat.
Okay. Are there approximate rates at which these factors lead to obesity, or is there some variation?
Well, there's definitely some variation. You'd have to look at one's BMI chart, which is based on one's height and weight, and but there's a lot of other factors that go into deciding whether a person's obese or not.
Alright. What health problems can obesity cause?
High blood pressure, type 2 diabetes, arteriosclerosis, lots of things.
How does obesity cause these problems?
Once again, when you consume a large amount of calories and with the lack of exercise, most of those calories coming from fat, which causes blockage in arteries and veins, which leads to the high blood pressure, and it restricts the amount of blood flow throughout the body.
How large do you believe the obesity problem is? Do you think that as large as it's made out to be, like that it's going to be the downfall of humans?
Well, I don't know if it'll be the downfall to humans, but it is a big problem, especially in our young children and early adolescent children. So, yeah, it's going to become a big problem if we don't do something about it right now.
And then, what can we do to combat the obesity problems? What can we do to cut down on the...
Well, I think there's a lot of things we can do. We can educate students better. We can educate parents better. We can look at school lunch programs and overall food marketing, things like that.
All right. Well, thank you.
No problem. Anytime.
There are many causes of obesity. Poor diet and physical inactivity are the leading causes of obesity, but there are many other causes such as genetics, culture, emotional factors, high fat or calorie diet, or medical problems. Many people blame the fast food corporations for their obesity problems, but there are many other factors that can lead to obesity. Obesity can cause several health problems such as high blood pressure, insulin resistance, type 2 diabetes, heart diseases, stroke, gout, gallstones, colon cancer, sleep apnea, and non-alcoholic fatty liver disease, just to name a few.
We found these pictures on the CDC website, and this shows the obesity trends per state. You can see that in the year 1986, the United States was not obese, and no state had more than 12% of their population obese. But wait what happens as we get into the year 2000. Many states in the United States now are yellow, which means that 20 to 24% of their population is obese. We can clearly see that obesity is becoming much more common in each state in the United States.
According to our research, the Center for Disease Control and Prevention gave us these statistics for the percentage of obese adults in the U.S. This is from ages 20 through 74. On this table it shows 5-year increments and the percentage of obese people in the U.S. during this time period. As you can see, from 1960 to 1965, the percentages are not increasing as much as from 1995 to 2000, which means we're having a much bigger increase of obese people in the U.S. than back in 1960 to 65. To find our graph, what we did was we took the data we gained from our research, which you can see here on our table, and we plugged it in and found a line of best fit. What we found was that the best fit for our plot of data was a quadratic equation which resulted in a parabolic graph. As you can see, it's a very small increase in the starting years, but as the years increase, there's a steeper increase in the percentage of obese people. 0 here represents the year 1960, and so it's at 0, which is 1960, there was 14.62 was the percentage of obese people in the United States. Over here is our equation. The y-intercept here actually represents the percentage of obese people in the U.S. At 1960, and this coefficient here is the first increase from year 0 to year 1, which is 1960 and 1961, increase in the percentage of obese people, and this is the rate of growth of this actual rate here. So again, X represents the years and Y represents the obesity percentage of adults from 20 to 74 in the U.S.
So now that we have everything graphed, we decided that we'd make a prediction and see what the average percentage of obese people would be in 2020. We took our equation from before and we plugged in x equals 60. We chose x equals 60 because our data first started with the year 1960 and 2020 is 60 years after that. We plugged it into the original equation and ended up getting y equals 40.6. This means that if our nation continues to have the same obesity rates and trends in 2020, the obesity rate will be 40.6% for adults.
Now, obviously, our data isn't entirely realistic. For example, when we plugged in the number 120, in other words, the year 2080, we eventually got to the point where over 100% of people were going to end up being obese. So obviously that isn't exactly realistic, so there must be some sort of flaw in our data. Or before then, the rate will change in some way.
As we learned, obesity is a problem, and the trends are continuously growing. Despite there now being ways to combat obesity trends are still rising. We need to take a step to combat obesity today.